Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tech Talk. We have Eric Patel from Boston EXO. Welcome, Eric.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Eric serves as Chief Innovation Officer at Boston EXO, New England's first exponential organization, incubator, which helps companies thrive through continuous business model innovation. They leverage exponential technologies along with abundance mindset to help organizations stay in business, disrupt their industry, and achieve exponential valuation. Boston EXO's massive transformative purpose is global exponential mindset and transformation. Eric holds certifications in QA, project management, Agile, Scrum, EXO, and innovation. He's the founder of innovation initiatives at Staples, Perkin Elmer, and Binks Health. Eric's a member of the OpenEXO community and economy core. He is a member of the OpenEXO economy core team and serves on the board of Exponential as a coach mentor for the company builder, Transferencia AP, the Cycles Remote Innovation Management Certification Program, and the MIT COVID-19 Challenge, and also the Humanitarian Innovation Hackathon. In addition, he was a contributor for the New Purpose Launchpad and serves as an advisor and organizer for the Purpose Alliance Challenge, an ambassador for OpenEXO Purpose Alliance in Rutanio, and will help bring the Future of Education Challenge this November. Eric, wow, what a background. I'm so excited to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and who is Eric Patel? A little bit of your personal history in the world of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Sure. Well, thanks, Mel, for having me. Great to be here. And thanks to Rutanio and their Tech Talks, which I understand they've been doing on a pretty regular basis now. So happy to be here and talk with you about Boston EXO and what we've been doing and everything. But I guess a little bit about myself. You mentioned the massive transformative purpose, or MTP, of Boston EXO. So let me share with you my individual massive transformative purpose, which is to help others thrive through unwavering loyalty, selfless service, and lifelong friendship. So I think that really sums it up pretty well. Some of the things that are really important to me. I come from an international family. My father is from India. My mother's from Germany. My wife is Colombian, brother-in-law from Australia, and sister-in-law from Russia. So it's all in our blood. Yeah, it's all in our blood. My background is I think folks might have seen on LinkedIn, is really mostly in IT and software quality assurance and QA. But I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? I've been a multipreneur really for many years. I've started businesses probably for the last 20 plus years or so. Boston EXO, of course, is the latest incantation of that. And I think, as you mentioned too, just with all of the credentials and learning and certifications that I've been pursuing, continuous learning and lifelong learning is certainly part of my my background and my interest.
What has been one of the biggest challenges that you faced throughout that journey?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have? I think, so with the entrepreneurial background and that sort of endeavor, right? That's probably been one of the biggest ones, right? On many levels. First and foremost, be able to start a business and keep that going, right? And have it be in business and be profitable, right? That's the holy grail. And I think we've all heard the old statistics of, 9 out of 10 businesses fail. I think updated ones aren't that much better. It's probably around 50% that fail after 5 years, which isn't that much more comforting. So that's always been an ongoing challenge, right? How do you start up, incubate, and accelerate a business, whether you're in business by yourself as a solopreneur with a team of people like we have at Boston EXO, and then how do you grow that beyond that to successful companies, right? So we at Boston EXO, we're still learning how to do this, right? We got formed earlier this year, so we're perhaps the new kids on the block. But it's been a lot of fun. Entrepreneurship has always been in my blood. It's always been a passion of mine. Even my last name, Patel, for those of you that may not know, it's an Indian name, of course, and Patels in this part of India, they do have entrepreneurship actually in their blood. My dad was an entrepreneur. sold life insurance for many years, and also had his own little tech adventure back in the early 90s. So got involved with that,
cool.
and it's always been part of it, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely interesting to see the background of family in entrepreneurs and that mindset that comes through. So could you tell us a little bit more about Boston EXO, what it is, and how it impacts the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Sure. So this story started not too many months ago, as I might have mentioned. Like many of you, perhaps you were working in a full-time job somewhere, happy doing your thing in 2020. And then, as you all know, there's been a lot of changes happening this year in pretty much all countries around, right? So I myself was impacted with some of these changes and had an opportunity to figure out what's next. So what I decided back in May was to pull some folks together. I had a now infamous startup company reveal webinar in which I basically said, okay, here's the situation, as you all know, here's what you can do, here's what I'm doing, here's what all this EXO stuff is, and who wants to come along for the ride. And to this day, 4+ months into it, we still have a good core team that's with us. The Boston EXO community has grown. We have partners, we have advisors, we even have student ambassadors. And so we're all part of this larger Exponential Organizations community, and it's all based on the book, Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail and his co-authors, which came out about 6 years ago. And what they did was they looked at what startup companies in Silicon Valley are doing right. What are those attributes? What do they have in common? And they came up with 10 EXO attributes plus the MTP. There was a follow-up book to that called Exponential Transformation, which is based on a 10-week sprint in which you innovate and you problem solve and you come up with the next best thing for your company or your venture. And so Boston EXO was founded on that. We also do other things within the agile business transformation space. You mentioned some of my credentials with these methodologies. And so we're really just trying to help companies stay in business, thrive, and, should they want to someday be 10x, be a unicorn, and be exponential.
That's awesome. And so just for anyone tuning in who is an entrepreneur or, would like to be involved, what would that look like?
So that journey could be any one of a number of things, Mel. Oftentimes it does start with a thought, an idea, an inclination, a motivation to work for yourself, to be in business for yourself. Look at how many companies are actually formed just starting with that thought. How many companies do go on to be big and successful and are still in business to this day. I think the important thing to remember is that over time, your business model, what you're in business for and what you're selling and who your customers are will change, right? At Boston EXO, we have an expression called disrupt or be disrupted. So unless you're Zildjian and you make drum cymbals for the last 400 years, most likely your business models are going to change, right? And it's to be disrupted or disrupt, right? So try to be proactive versus reactive, right? Understanding that you may be in business today for a good reason, but soon enough, you'll have to pivot. You'll have to change with the times. And look how many people have done that just this year in 2020.
Definitely 100%. And I mean, so many companies have faced that reality in 2020 and in the past. I mean, there's the infamous case study of Sears that Babson always enjoys going through of the disrupt or be disrupted, right? So that's super exciting. And for anyone tuning in that's an entrepreneur or would like to learn some more, we're going to drop also the link so that you can go and visit the website and join the community. So Eric, you're also a Rutanio USA ambassador. So what opportunities do you see from Rutanio and Boston EXO? And what do you think the potential impact in the ecosystem looks like?
So for those that don't know, Rutanio organization was formed, several years ago. It actually came out of Colombia, and they've since expanded. And they're similar to OpenEXO in a sense that they are doing a lot of stuff when it comes to the innovation economy, as Mel just mentioned, right? So this is peer-to-peer transactions using sort of non-fiat currency, tokens, if you will, cryptocurrency. And Mel and I know a lot about that.
For those tuning in.
Right. So, part of what we want to try to do within Boston EXO and just this larger innovation economy is to get people to realize that, for exchange of goods and services, there are other ways, there are other solutions, there are other people doing things, including using cryptocurrency, coins, and tokens to buy and sell services. And so that's one of the initiatives that we're trying to push along here at Boston EXO, partnering with Rutanio as well as OpenEXO and their Exos token.
That's awesome. And so from joining, so you first came, can you tell me a little bit of the timeline of your journey with Boston EXO and Rutanio?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we pulled together the core team back in May. We kicked things off in June. We ran a nearly 3-month internship this summer. And at that point, I became more conscious about their larger community, including OpenEXO and Rutanio, and realized that, in order for Rutanio to grow and to expand and to educate people on things like cryptocurrency and tokens and blockchain, I needed to learn more myself and also get involved. So there was an opportunity with Rutanio to serve as an ambassador for the USA. Mel, yourself, I know you're also doing that. Some of our other colleagues right within the field. And they are, of course, growing. And, we're tasked with helping spread the news, the information, the knowledge, of course, about these technologies, but also realizing that, again, there are different alternative ways to buy and sell services within the global economy.
For sure. And so sounds like, being one of the founders of Boston EXO, what was that journey like? Because how did you take the title CIO and not CEO, and what did that decision look like within yourself and the team?
Right, that's a good one. I guess as a founder, you can call yourself whatever you want, but I didn't want to actually take that CEO traditional title. I mean, I'm very close to innovation, as you know, and problem solving and tech and IT. And so the Chief Innovation Officer role just kind of resonated with me some more. And, part of our philosophy at Boston EXO is, and I tell my core team this all the time, as they can attest to it, like, this is not my company. This is our company, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who we have on board as a core team member and our bigger Boston EXO community, like, truly, we are one big family. I know you've probably heard that expression lots of times, right? And we're like that same thing with Rutanio, right? So by sharing the ownership, by giving people autonomy, by letting people take the initiative, by supporting people and doing a whole bunch of other really important leadership and management traits and skills, you can really have people succeed and sort of stay with you for the long term. And I think we're seeing some of that right now with Boston EXO and the core team.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And, it's really awesome. I mean, to sit here and learn more about you as well, being a current ambassador from Rutanio, because there's so much to learn from each other. And I'm actually really happy we're doing this. As you know, I'm also involved with Blockchain Education Network, and we work together with Rutanio as well. And so earlier this month, you announced that Boston EXO now accepts cryptocurrency for its payment in their services. Why has Boston EXO become an early adopter of supporting crypto and tokens? As CIO, that must have been a decision coming from you, right?
It was. We do have a leadership team as well, folks within, business and strategy, legal, solutions, and even culture. And so it was a group decision. And what we wanted to do, again, was support both OpenEXO and their Exos token, as well as Rutanio and their Ruta token. And again, we feel that, part of this whole EXO thing is the technology, right? So blockchain and crypto being some of those, right? AI, robotics, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. I mean, there's so much that's happening within the EXO space. And this is, I think, an example of a huge takeaway from the book, Exponential Organizations, and how companies can and probably should be embracing more of this technology moving forward. So along those lines, both Exos and Rutas have been around for now some time. And we wanted to give our customers some options, right? We wanted to be forward thinkers. We wanted to blaze the trail, right? And be agile. So by accepting at least partial payments in tokens, we can support really both economies, right? So by using tokens, you can buy and sell services with others within both the Rutanio as well as the open EXO marketplaces.
And just for clarification, is it all cryptocurrencies? Is some specific tokens? I know there's Rutanio EXO. Could you elaborate a little bit on that side of it?
So as far as we know, there is just the one token within OpenEXO. Exos, I think, as everybody knows, and they've been trading those now, I think, since 2018, so the last 2+ years or so. And I think recently Rutanio celebrated their 1-year anniversary with the Ruta, and so we're pretty excited about that as well. Both organizations gave away some promotions earlier this year, both in Exos and in Rutas, to kind of celebrate certain milestones that they've achieved. But I think a lot of these exponential technologies like blockchain and crypto, they've been around for a while. A lot of people still don't understand or get it. And so obviously there's a little bit of a learning curve, and we're trying to help people with that. And this is where Boston EXO is trying to become that community education outreach leader, right, with both organizations, because there is kind of a lot to know. There is kind of a little bit of a leap of faith you have to do, and understanding the risk, I think, just makes the comfort levels increase for everybody.
And reduces the barrier of entry, right? That's key. That's awesome. Exactly. Yeah. And you guys, and the market, is there a specific market you're focused on? Is it mostly entrepreneurs or professionals, or?
So within Boston EXO, our services primarily are based for B2B as well as B2C. So we would like to help organizations within probably 3 different tiers, right? These days, of course, there are a lot of businesses that are in danger of closing for good. There were 4 sectors that Peter Diamandis talked about back in a May 2020 blog post. And they were brick and mortar retail, commercial real estate, restaurants and bars, and even, believe it or not, schools and universities and colleges. So this is kind of our first customer segment here. I'd like to help those companies with whatever they need help with so they can keep their doors open. Beyond that, if you're in no immediate danger or risk of closing your doors, how do you stay in business? How do you remain competitive? Like, knowing earlier we talked about business models and how inevitably they will change. Can we help companies with incremental innovation, making changes to existing business models? Can we help companies with brand new business models through disruptive innovation? Absolutely, right? A lot of companies are doing that in one way or another. Certainly love to help them out there. And then finally, the third tier would be this exponential unicorn, Silicon Valley 10X, right? Where you can really leverage exponential technologies. You can really master these EXO attributes and not only tap abundance, but manage it. And a lot of companies are doing that really well these days.
What are some companies that you would say are doing a good job with that?
So it's all the names, Mel, that we all kind of know and hear about, even though some of them have taken a little bit of a hit during this particular year, due to the pandemic. Airbnb, Google, Amazon, Tesla, the list goes on. And these are some of the names that people know about. Now, there's a whole other tier of names that people perhaps don't know about, at least not yet, right? So a lot of these companies have valuations of $1 billion plus. And, they're still in business. They're wildly successful. We all know them. So what are they doing right? How can we learn from them? You can leverage exponential technologies, among other things, to be able to mimic what they're doing.
So, talking about innovation and exponential growth and development and learning from past, right? How do we keep up with innovation, right? What does the future of innovation look like? We talk a lot about cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and sometimes when people think of innovation, the first thing that they think is tech, right? But there's a difference between CIO and CTO. So could you elaborate and share with us a little bit on that?
Sure, and then I think we all have heard the quote before, right? The best way to invent the future is to create it, right? And that happens all the time, right? So it starts here, right? It starts with a thought. I mean, everything that's around you, everything in your world, everything in your environment started in somebody's head, right? And from there, it just goes, right? It blossoms. There's been obviously a lot of success stories and a lot of failures as well. It's important to learn from that, be a learning organization. But again, when it comes to innovation, like this has to be in companies' DNAs. Whether you call it innovation or you have a lab or you're doing some sort of forward thinking, being a learning organization, right? The process of almost like reinventing yourself, whether it's your business model, your customer segments, how you do sales or marketing, right? It all kind of ties in. Like these days, like writing a business plan or even sometimes going to MBA school, for a lot of us, we're just not doing that anymore, right? We are putting together one-page business model canvases. We are doing a lot of lean startup where we are persevering or we're making changes through pivots or we're just junking it and moving on, right? So we're trying to do things iteratively and incrementally. And this is where a little bit of Agile Scrum comes into play here, where you don't have to place all your bets and all your money and all your efforts and all your people on one hope, one dream, one shot, right? So by, again, using these technologies and some of these techniques, you can minimize your risk even more than what you used to do writing business plans years ago, right? And again, learning from experience. One of the things we are trying to institute at Boston EXO and trying to help our clients with is something called business idea testing, experimentation, right? So a lot of you are familiar with a simple A/B test, right? Just a simple A/B test. You could do that just with a website.
Important.
Right?
So important and so useful to so many startups, especially in the blockchain space, because I mean, some of the issues I often see companies running into is the lack of understanding of UI and UX, right? Yeah. When developing that product, and then they have a great tech solution, but not such a great product. So that's super awesome. I know that you guys are expanding soon to a city near. Can you give us a little teaser of what that looks like? And I actually have a follow-up to that, which is Boston EXO is partnered with Rutanio, and Boston's in the U.S. and Rutanio's in Latin America. Do you also have clients in a community? Are you seeing a community in Latin America? Is that possibly a city near us coming soon? What can you share?
I think so. So yes, we are, one of the best things, Mel, about this whole community and the work we've been doing has been really the people we've met, right? Through openexo.com, through Purpose Alliance, through a lot of other organizations. It's suffice to say, if it wasn't for some of the changes that have happened this year, you and I, we probably wouldn't be talking right now, for starters, right? And that includes a host of people, not even just within the Boston EXO community, but within the larger EXO community. Like the quantity and quality of people we've met, we've connected with, and that we talk to on a regular basis are truly from around the world.
That's awesome.
It's really been incredible, and the community has been extremely helpful and gracious and knowledgeable, and this is a big reason why we're in it, right? So we're all helping one another as we're trying to help and serve the bigger community, right? Our clients, etc. So it's pretty cool.
And any teasers as to where you're coming soon to?
So we are working with a number of folks, some of whom I've alluded to in this group of people who we've reached out to, who we've connected with over LinkedIn, over the community, through the EXO world, and they too want to serve. Right? They want to leverage exponential technologies. They want to leverage these EXO attributes. So how can they do that? How can we talked about entrepreneurship earlier, right? How can they start their own business, their own EXO Africa, for example? So there've been a number of folks who we've been talking to. Some of those locations are listed on our site. And it could be something from one end of the spectrum where it's full serve, where they would almost be like a franchise, kind of like, let's duplicate what you guys are doing in our part of the world and in our country, to something a little bit more specific, where perhaps they are most of the way there, but they need help in a couple of other specific areas. So we're gracious and helpful and interested in helping others kind of form their own businesses, be entrepreneurs. We're also helping startups through Boston EXO Labs as well. So there's a lot going on.
I didn't know all this. I'm like so excited here. So I gotta ask you, in every startup, as you've mentioned, there's always pivots and there's always surprises. What has been the biggest surprise that you've had when developing Boston EXO?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, so I know I didn't prepare you for that one. I'm sorry.
Well, I think, just as a quick example, we talked earlier about MTP, right? And this is the massive transformative purpose. And this is supposed to be something that's like beyond mission statement, well beyond even a vision statement, even beyond a moonshot, right? So an MTP is supposed to be like a 20, 30-year-old vision of what it's like in the future, right? So, as you mentioned, our MTP is Global Exponential Mindset Transformation. We feel it does start here. We talked earlier about how inventions and innovation come to play. And, a good portion of the world and people are still in a scarcity mindset, right? Fixed resources, fixed money, and everything is kind of there for the taking, or a linear mindset, sort of non-exponential, right? So linear growth with companies. And I can tell you our journey within Boston EXO has been somewhat exponential. We did a talk recently where we shared more or less what the last 4 months have been. It's been quite a ride, to be honest with you. So part of what we're trying to do is obviously change the mindset of people throughout the world. And we're trying to do this at a B2C level as well as a B2B. And we do find that a lot of companies are still kind of stuck in their old ways, like they're still thinking about fixed assets and fixed resources, and again, kind of a scarcity mindset, when really, in fact, when you look around you, whether it be from these technologies, the resources that we have, Lord knows we have some problems we need to solve, but really, if you can start to change that mindset, you start to look at things differently, you start to think of things differently, more importantly, you start to act differently, and that's really what's going to bring about change.
Oh, so exciting. So we have a question from Angelo, and he says, "Hi, Eric. What kind of services are you offering at Boston EXO?"
So thanks for the question. We do have a number of services, as I mentioned, mostly for B2C and B2B. So our B2C would be in the education training space. We have partnered with OpenEXO and are helping to kind of fill the gaps in with their EXO Sprint Coach certification. So part of running, let's say, this 10-week innovation workshop, you can get some credentials. Right now, you can either do that for the first 5 weeks of this program through OpenEXO, or you could take the remaining weeks of the EXO Sprint, which is weeks 6 through 10 through us. Or if you want to do all of it in one shot, weeks 1 through 10, we can help you with that as well. We're also eligible to offer another certification from OpenEXO called EXO Consultant. That's something I did earlier this year. And even before that, for those of you that want to go through the Exponential Innovation book over the course of whether it's 10 weeks, 5 weeks, a weekend, if you want to do a boot camp, we can do that. We've put together a pretty comprehensive exam, and once you pass that, we'll credential you as well. So that's what we have pretty much at the individual level. And at the corporate level, we have a number of things as well within EXO space. We have our typical advisory coaching calls. We have an opportunity to have companies sponsor, let's say, a future internship, which we hope to do this winter as well as next summer. We could even put on one-day workshops as well, because again, if we're going to change the mindset of people, it's almost like we've got to do that in some instances, sort of one person at a time, right? Like it does, you do sort of do that one-to-one connection, and then you have to work through the C-suite, you work through the next layer, and people will eventually come on board, but it does take a while, right? The changing somebody's mind can be difficult.
Definitely. And I just have a bit of clarity to ask. So we talk a lot of Boston EXO, and then we also hear about Open EXO. Could you kind of tell us the connection, or just so whoever's tuning in not to get confused?
Yeah, sure. So obviously Open EXO is the organization that's behind the book and the certification and the platform, etc. So we made a conscious decision to incorporate the EXO, Exponential Organizations, in our name. We also made another conscious decision to kind of do geography-based. So we said Boston EXO, even though, of course, we service the world. We wanted to sort of, look at the market here in the New England, eastern part of the United States, and, you know, service our clients here. As you may know, 128, the Boston area is kind of the high-tech area within New England,
Yeah.
sort of right the San Francisco Bay Area.
MIT.
Right,
Yeah.
the Silicon Valley of the West Coast, sure, right. So that was, I think, part of the reason choosing the geography. And the EXO name is, again, it's open, right? So no pun intended, open EXO. So you could be, you know, Paris EXO, you could be Austin EXO, or whatever. Today, we've actually advised some clients to start grabbing domain names along those lines. But at some point, hopefully, we're going to have a .exo domain, and OpenEXO will be credentialing, certifying companies that meet the criteria that they are exponential, and they'll get, for example, Boston.exo.
That's okay. Awesome. That's super clear. Thank you, Eric, for that. And so speaking of growth and development, I know that you guys are growing your team, especially your core team, and you're seeking help in a number of areas, including business development, sales, tech, etc. What is someone getting into when they join the family?
Well, I'm hoping for a really good experience. I mean, I think you might want to ask the core team members and see how things have been with them. But I think for the most part, you know, we have our values, we have our philosophies. We are, you know, working really closely with our partners as well as our advisory board, when they've been extremely helpful. But I mean, we are definitely a different kind of company, right? Like perhaps any other company. We're big believers in servant leadership and autonomy and responsibility, persistence. I mean, we have lots of traits and values that have been part of our core culture. Our business model is definitely a little bit different, right? People are here for a different reason, and hopefully the right reason. And, you know, there's a little bit of sweat equity that's certainly happening, and everybody's basically an independent contractor, and, you know, we try to do what we can. One of the EXO attributes is staff on demand, right? So a lot of these core team members, believe it or not, have other things going on in their lives. You know, this could be part-time, full-time jobs, other endeavors, but everybody is still showing up, right? Everybody's still making time to get work done and to make stuff happen. I think that's part of the magic here at Boston EXO.
Well, and sustainable growth, right? Because definitely for startups, when you bring on a lot of people full time, it can get complicated. So
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense the way you guys are looking at it.
Yeah.
Eric, any last words or anything you think you'd like to share with the community before you go?
Sure. So just wanted to say thanks again, Mel, for the interview, and thanks again to Rutanio and these Tech Talk series. Definitely want to encourage people to continue to watch these and support Rutanio and the Ruta and the innovation economy. You know, perhaps I'll just leave folks with a quote. Some of you may or may not know Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. He was a speaker, author, motivational kind of person, one of Tony Robbins' teachers, you know, years ago. He has this great quote that I want to share with folks, and it's simply, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse, right? So I shared that with the team earlier this year, and we recruited a number of folks to join us as part of the core team. We asked people to join us as part of the advisory board. We've asked partners to come on board. We've asked students from our internship to come on board as ambassadors. So the community, the family keeps growing. And I believe people are here for the right reasons. And whatever you want to do, whatever you want to pursue, whether it's entrepreneurship, starting your own business, being part of this community, there is something here for you, and you definitely can do it.
Thank you so much for that. I think that during this time where the future is so uncertain, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who need to hear that. And so really appreciate those words of encouragement. And actually, before you leave, is there a book or a movie that you'd say off the top of your list somebody needs to watch who's, you know, in our space?
Wow. So other than the two I mentioned earlier, let me throw out a couple of other ones that may be of interest. I talked earlier about kind of business experimentation. And our friends over at Strategizer did come out with a book called Testing Business Ideas early this year. It is a goldmine. I alluded to just one simple example out of many, just an A/B test, and this is one of the many tests that's in this book. It is well worth the price, whatever you pay for that. The second one, which is maybe a little off topic, but when it comes to, the quote I just shared with you a couple minutes ago, I think it's relevant. It's called Atomic Habits, and James Clear is the author. And I can almost guarantee you, whatever chapter you make it to, and if you only read 1 or 2 chapters from the book, it's gold. Like you will love it. And if you
I can attest to that.
and implement some of the habits, even better.
For sure. For sure. And these books, all the ones you mentioned, would you say could be found on Amazon for the most part?
Sure.
Although support your local bookstores.
Right.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on today. This was absolutely lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm so glad we did this. And I'm sure that the community that is listening and watching had many takeaways. And we will be posting the link to Boston EXO so that you can go and have some more information. Thanks again, Eric.
Thanks a lot, Mel. Thank you, Rutanio.
Bye.